Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something that's always nibbling away at your money. Inflation. Yep, it's that invisible force that makes your hard-earned cash worth less over time. So let's dive right in and figure this thing out.
So have you ever really stopped to think about this? I mean, seriously, 100 rupees in your pocket today just doesn't stretch as far as it did a decade ago, right? And that cup of chai or that movie ticket, the price keeps creeping up. It's not random. Nope, it's a huge clue that something bigger is going on behind the scenes.
And that's it, right there. The answer is inflation. It's just a fancy word for the speed at which your money is losing its buying power. And let me tell you, getting a handle on this is absolutely the first step if you want to protect your financial future.
All right, so let's put on our detective hats and solve this shrinking rupee mystery. And the first clue? We've got to look at how India officially keeps track of this thing that hits every single one of our wallets.
Okay, so in India, there are basically two main ways we measure inflation. You've got the WPI, which is more for businesses, wholesale prices, but the one that really matters to you and me is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. This is the one that tracks the stuff we actually buy, our food, our rent, transport. It's supposed to be the real measure of our cost of living.
Now check this out. When you look at what's inside this CPI basket, it's pretty eye-opening. Food and beverages, they make up a massive 46%, almost half. And that one number explains so much. It's exactly why a bad monsoon or the price of onions suddenly shooting up becomes front-page news. It literally has the power to shake the entire economy.
All right, so we get how it's measured. But what's actually causing it? What's the engine driving these prices up? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the mechanics.
There's this classic saying that sums it up perfectly. Inflation happens when there's too much money chasing too few goods. At its heart, it's just a simple supply and demand game. If everyone has money and wants to buy, say, the latest smartphone, but there aren't enough phones to go around, what happens? You guessed it, the price goes up.
And this is where you see the real domino effect. It all starts with one little push, or a shock, as economists call it. So let's say there's a bad monsoon. Instantly, crop yields are down. That pushes up wholesale prices for farmers and producers. Before you know it, the price of your atta and dal at the corner store goes up. And then what? Well, you and I need more money to afford groceries, so we ask for a raise. And boom, the cycle just keeps rolling, spreading inflation through the whole system.
So who's the firefighter in this whole scenario? That's the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI. When inflation starts getting out of control, they pull out their biggest hose, which is something called the repo rate. Think of it as the rate at which they lend money to other banks. So the RBI jacks up this rate. That makes borrowing more expensive for all the other banks. And what do? They pass that cost right on to us. Our home loans, our car loans, they all get more expensive. The whole point is to make us think twice about spending. It slows everything down, cools off demand, and hopefully brings those prices back to earth.
Okay, so that's all the theory. But theory is one thing, right? Let's see how this played out in the real world. And man, has it been a roller coaster. Let's take a look back at India's wild inflation ride over the past 14 years or so.
You can really break this story down into 4 clear chapters. First, there was the high inflation crisis. Then we had a period people called the Great Cool Down. After that, things were kind of steady, navigating the target. And then came the massive post-COVID shock.
12%. Just let that number sink in. Between 2010 and 2013, we were in a full-blown crisis. Inflation peaked at a staggering 12%. I mean, can you imagine if the cost of everything you buy went up by that much in a year? It was nuts. It was mostly driven by crazy high food prices and global oil prices. And the RBI? They had no choice but to slam on the brakes, hiking interest rates like crazy to try and get things under control.
So, after that chaos, the government and the RBI basically said, never again. And in 2016, they came up with a new rule book. It's called the Inflation Targeting Framework. And the rule is simple. The RBI's main job is to keep inflation inside this band. No lower than 2%, no higher than 6%. The perfect sweet spot they're always aiming for is 4%. And today, this simple framework is the guide for pretty much every big decision the RBI makes.
And this whole new framework got a major stress test just recently. Starting in 2022, a whole bunch of things went wrong globally. The war in Ukraine, supply chains were a mess, and boom, inflation shot right past that 6% red line. So what did the RBI do? Exactly what the rulebook said they had to do. They stepped in and started hiking rates aggressively to pull it back down.
Okay, so we've talked about all this big picture stuff, national stats, RBI policy, but what does that actually mean for you? Why should you care? Well, because every bit of this economic drama has a direct impact on your wallet, your savings, your future. Let me be super clear about this. Inflation is a silent killer of your wealth. Just think about this. A steady 6% inflation rate, which is the RBI's upper limit, by the way, will literally cut the purchasing power of your money in half in just 12 years. So if your investments, your savings, if they're not beating that rate, you're not standing still, you're actively getting poorer every single day. It's that serious.
So let's bring it all home. What can you do with this knowledge? First, you've got to start thinking about your real return. That's the only number that matters, what you earn after you subtract inflation. Second, timing is everything, especially with loans. Taking out a big loan when the RBI is hiking rates can be a really expensive mistake. And finally, and this is the most direct one, you need to remember that when the RBI makes a move, your loan EMIs feel it almost instantly.
This chart makes it crystal clear. Let's look at two scenarios. In scenario A, you make a 7% return on an investment while inflation is at 6%. Great, you're actually 1% richer in real terms. But look at scenario B. You've got your money in a savings account earning 4%. Inflation is still 6%. Well, guess what? You're actually going backwards. You've lost 2% of your purchasing power. Your bank statement might show more rupees, but those rupees buy you less stuff. You got poorer.
So I'm going to leave you with that question to really think about. It's the most important question in personal finance. It's not about how many rupees you have. It's about what those rupees can do for you. And understanding that crucial difference, well, that's the secret to actually building real, lasting wealth. Thanks for tuning in to The Explainer.